Hello, good evening. Okay, here goes. Hi everyone. My name is Mahesh Dattani, and hi Kirti, hello. Uh, it's really an honor and a privilege to be here on this platform organized by Coconut Theatre. And I am really good evening, Salimji and Lupi, Jaidev, Gilit, Manish. I've, I've heard some of the talks, and I'm not sure whether what I have to say it's such a specific subject, whether it'll be of interest to you. But here goes. What is it about the theatre that interests us? Why do we do theatre? Maybe let's begin with the simplest of questions as to why do we do theatre. Since this is not an interactive platform, in my opinion, let's say the unambitious actor does theatre to display their abilities or talents. The unambitious director does theatre to display their vision of a particular text. The unambitious writer writes to dazzle. I think these are very limited focuses. We all do theatre, whether we're writers or whether we're directors or actors, because we want to tell a story. And when we do focus on that storytelling, the audiences love us. And as you all know, it is an actor's medium because it's everything builds up to that amazing chemistry between the audience and the spectator and the performer. And that is something which the theatre offers, which film or the digital platform like this one doesn't really offer you. Is that, for example, in film, once the film is shot, the actor is dead, because then the director takes over and furthers their vision through the editing process and the background score process, and tells the story through his or her idea of the rhythm and pace. Whereas in the theatre, the actor does it all. The rhythm and pace is created by the actor on stage, and there is no director. Unlike a conductor of an orchestra, the director is not there. So it's entirely the chemistry between the audience and the spectators. So where does the writer fit in to the scheme of things? It's like the origin, like how do you give birth to something? So to me, one thing we all have in common, whether we're playwrights or directors or actors, is that we all come together to tell a story. We all have a story to tell. There's nobody amongst us who doesn't have a story to tell, and we've all heard stories. Now, here's the thing, is that when we tell a story, like if I were to ask you, give me a story about what happened to you, right? You will say, yesterday I managed to get out of my building and there's a lockdown and I saw a fight, and then there was this policeman who came there to stop this thing. Now, immediately when you're telling a story, you're telling it in the past tense. When you tell a story in the past tense, the person listening to the story knows that you know the ending because it's already happened. The difference between telling a story in the theatre is you tell it in the present tense. So if the same story, if you were to tell it in the present tense, right? That is, I go out of my building. There's a lockdown. I don't see anyone on the streets. All of a sudden, a gang of people appear. There's a fight. Wait. They're not fighting. They're playing, I think. But amidst that playing, there is a fight. I don't see very many people wearing masks. It is quite dangerous what they're doing. I don't want to be near them, right? So as you could see, that the minute I tell the story in the present tense, right, the listener is under the illusion that I do not know the ending. And to me, that is the difference between if we say that all of us are storytellers, that's true, right? But all of us are not writers of stories, whether, whatever form you choose, because we do not tell the story in the present tense. So if you want to be a playwright, the first thing that you need to do is to learn to tell a story in the present tense. Yeah, hi Keurshik ji and Nutan and Priyadarshini. Thank you all for joining. Just to sort of quickly sum up what I've said so far, for those who came in late, is that we're all storytellers, number one, and we do hi Binaifa, we do tell stories. And we're all in the theatre, we all come together to tell one story. And we are aspects of the story that we're telling, where we're telling it deeply, we're telling it widely, we're telling it, with height, depth, using all the 6 directions of time and space, using time for movement, we tell the story. And I think with that common vision, theatre can be magical. And you can have the audience literally begging you for more, loving you as actors, and loving the writing as well, on hindsight, but not when they're watching the play, because it's the actor's job to completely engage the audience. So as a playwright, my job is to tell a story in the present tense, right? In a way that the director, the actors, and all the people who are in the collaborative process can add texture to it, tell the story, adding their elements to it. So that's the first thing, is how do you tell a story in the present tense? Let me go to another question as to why do we go to the theatre. We've addressed why do we do theatre. Now, why do we go to the theatre? What is it that we want? Like I said, when you tell a story in the present tense, immediately you have the listener's attention. But as someone wisely said, that the only story we want to listen to is our own story. Just think about it. What do we mean by our own story? Is that somewhere the stories that we hear or see have to reflect our own lives and the unwritten, sometimes unspoken, sometimes unthought of stories, our own stories. So in that sense, there are the polarities. One is that if as a playwright, I feel I want to tell a story, it's a very personal story and it is about me, right? And on the other hand, you have, I'm going to tell a story, I'm going to write a play that's going to sort of kick ass and beat all other stories, and it's going to just make the audiences gasp in wonderment at the power of my story. So you have these polarities. One is the very personal story that may or may not reach out. And the other is this very sales anxious story, right? There is this misnomer that if you do comedies, the audiences would accept the story. Again, the focus is very completely outward. So what do we need? We need to tell our story, but we have to make it appear that it is the story of the audience who are listening to it. So therein lies the craft. It's my story, but I have to make it yours. And there is a whole world of dramaturgy, of craft involved with that. Of course, I'm not going to get into too many details, because a lot of it is are things that I gained with personal experience, which is more useful to me than all the how to write a play or how to write a screenplay, which is good because it helps you sort of find a frame of reference to your experience. But basically, it is all about writing. If you want to write, and now is a good time to think about it if you're not a writer, and since there are so many actors and theatre people who are tuning in to listen to this, I think even if you don't want to be a playwright, if you want to be an actor, the experience you will have just attempting to write a play is going to help you. As a director, I think that experience is going to further your cause greatly, because as I said, it begins with the writing. And every director, every actor doing text-based theatre needs to understand story. And there is a process of script analysis, then there's a process of character analysis, which I'm not going to go through in detail over here. But it begins with the text, and so theatre begins with the writing. Now, here is a bit like, who are we writing for? Right now, that's a very big question, and we all have our assumptions as to who our audiences are. But I just want to bring your attention to the words used to describe the people who are experiencing theatre, right? One is, we call them audience in English, audio, which means that people who hear you are your audience, right? Then the other word, very Aristotelian in the sense it's one of the elements he mentions, is spectator, right? Spec to do with vision. So the one who sees is the spectator, right? So it seems like we sort of alternate between audience and spectator. But I think it's interesting to look at the word used in the Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni, and of course expounded later by others, especially Abhinav Gupta. The word is rasik. The one who tastes is a rasik, right? Now this brings in an entirely different sensory perception from audience and spectator. So I think the word rasik is probably closer to what an audience seeks, and it defines the objective of the playwright, the director, and the actors and the scenographers, costume designers, is that all of us collaborate to create that experience, to create that taste. It's like creating an elaborate meal, and all the ingredients in the right proportions that go into it. Hi Dolly, so great that you're tuned in, big fan of yours. Okay, it's when we say rasa It is, yes. It has to do with the sensory perception of taste. But I think it resonates. It's poetic in that sense. So I would like to use the word experience. I know that a lot of people translate rasa as emotion because the definition, the categories of rasas are very much connected with emotions. But I think the word experience resonates better with me, and I think it's closer to the essence, the taste is what we're looking at. So as we've seen that our objective is to create rasa, then is to create that experience, and how we do it together is the magic of theatre. But again, it begins with the writing, because the theories, different theories about it. One is that the rasa is inherent in the writing, and the job of the actor and of course the director is to draw forth the experience from the text. Now, I don't completely agree with it, but I'm not an expert on rasa theory. And the other is that it is the power of suggestion, right? That it is the dhvani. Again, dhvani is a very interesting word. We use it orally very often, but again, it resonates. See, the word resonates also has resonance. It resonates to mean vibration, because that is sound, isn't it? So in that sense, there is the other theory where rasa is implied, right? That there is a power of suggestion, which I think is far more truthful. And especially if you look at the aesthetics of modern theatre, very rarely are the emotions prescribed. We do not, that is not the fashion today. And I think it is the power of suggestion which makes it so powerful. When I was doing a play by Lorca, I did an adaptation of the Yerma and then later Blood Wedding. And set it completely in an Indian ethos. I studied about the Spanish concept of duende in the theatre, and that is to do with that which is not seen and that which is not heard, and yet it exists, right? I think that the theory of rasa, again, I'm not an expert, and I do hope Coconut Theatre Kayur, you must get an expert on rasa theory on your platform. It's very, very important that all of us as theatre practitioners go back to the origin, because I think we'll be so much more enriched with that knowledge. So again, how then in your writing or in your directing do you either generate or allow the rasa to manifest? I think it comes first with a deep understanding of the story that you're telling, because all the answers lie in that. And then, of course, there is the craft, right, which is the natya dharma, which you need to sort of experience, understand, train. Whatever it is a doing art. So one way or another, you just have to imbibe that process. So as a writer, what do I focus on? I do not focus on this larger objective, because I just feel I'm too small a person to do that, and I'm not entirely sure I want to do it. So now I'm talking about experience, not about theory. What I feel has helped me with the writing, because I see my writing through the production process, even if somebody else is directing it, and as a witness, not as a participant, when somebody else is directing it. And I see that so much is about trust, that you need to trust your director, trust the actors to breathe life. So which means there has to be enough space in your writing for the breadth that comes in, because it's the breadth that's going to make your play. And we write plays to be performed, right? And Dolly has an interesting rasa theory can be best explained by none other than Rita Kothari. That's the name. Okay, please note it down, Kayurji, if you're still there. Try and get Rita Kothari, man, because I think this is very, very important that we understand this. Yes, of course, a lot of it is very prescriptive, but there are enough theories and criticisms about rasa theory that have come after that by very well-known, dramatists, which are just as important. And I could tell you, having studied Bharatnatyam, that the concept of rasa is hugely important today, especially because we are in the age of consumerism, which may not be a bad thing, but I think we sometimes write, we sometimes produce, we sometimes direct to be consumed, right? And I think the consumption comes later, much, much later. You have to trust whatever you do to be consumed. But I think you create something. That you create, you want to breathe life into something that lives, because that's what makes theatre exciting, is that it has breath in it. And it's the same air that we share with our audience, which is why we are in a crisis today, because we do not trust that air anymore. So it's literally as if the artist's breath has been taken away from them. That was a diversion. I don't want to get into a kind of oh, woe is us, what are we going to do now kind of situation. But to me, it begins with small things. It's always one brick at a time. Like I've been asked this question very often, what is my process? How do I go about it? Now, I heard a lecture by Paula Vogel, who is a brilliant playwright, and you must read her, How I Learned to Drive, Baltimore Waltz, brilliant plays. She won the Pulitzer, I think, for How I Learned to Drive. And in the lecture, she uses a word which I have adapted. She uses the word plasticity, right? Now, when we use the word plasticity, we immediately think of plastic, right? But plastic it's not fluidity, but I think it's this ability to shape and reshape oneself. And I think that's hugely important in a collaborative process like the theatre. She doesn't use the word environment, which is what I used for a very long time. And I could see why after she explained why plastic, because environment again is somehow associated with the style of theatre which brought in naturalism or realism, where the focus was on the environment that the characters were in. But let's not go into that. The word plasticity, I would loosely translate, and poetically mind you, because it's not a literal translation. I would like to moldability. Yes, Nutan, that's a good. I think molding is good. I think the ability to mold, yes. So moldability in that sense, I would agree with you completely. I think. I would use the word relationship, right? I'll tell you why. Because any relationship, man, woman, man, woman, parent, child, whatever, is that if the element of plasticity is not present, there is no relationship in that sense. Then there is dominance and there is submission, right? So if we're coming from the present tense, and again, I'm using the word present in the technical way that Patsy Rodenberg uses in her book, The Second Circle. I would strongly recommend you to read that. All theatre practitioners should read it. Is that this, in the present, there's equality. It is possible to have a relationship only in the present tense. And that is why the greatest of plays are about strong relationships, because it's happening in the present. Superiority is an energy of the past, right? I feel inferior to you because of my memory of my social upbringing, or I feel superior to you because of my memory. So it is coming from the past. It is coming from a sense of status that has memory, right? So technically speaking, and I'm just putting this in a nutshell, is that the present tense is about equality, because I respond to you, you respond to me by what I'm doing, what I'm breathing, what I'm saying right now. And I think that is the illusion as writers, as directors, as actors we need to create. Because if I go to the theatre or a dance performance, no matter how skilled everything is, yes, everything is arranged, right? This comes after this, and the causality of time is fixed, because for the audience there is a temporal causal pattern already in place, because they come to see the play at 7 and they finish at 9 or whatever time it takes, but it is linear. Their time structure is linear, right? But within that linear structure, where do you transport them, right? Once you engage them in the present, you can transport them anywhere and actually suspend not just their sense of disbelief, but suspend their sense of time. So very often when you see something interesting, one of the reactions is, oh my God, I didn't know, time just went by. I didn't know it was 2.5 hours long. And we've seen some boring stuff, which is about 45 minutes, and you're already looking at your watches. Well, watches are obsolete now. You're checking your messages on your cell phone, or you're just sort of scrolling your screen and things. We've all been through that, right? So what is it that makes the difference, right? It is telling the story very much in the present. I think that is the key to successful writing. Telling a personal story. By personal, I don't mean autobiographical. By personal, I mean that it has to come from an interpersonal, intrapersonal relationship. That's one of the relationships, the plasticities that I would like to talk about. The other one, which is a little more specific, because all this is a little grand and very beautiful. Not all of it, they're not all my thoughts. I'm just sort of collating things that I've learned from my experience. But here I come to what I do, is my first relationship, apart from the relationship with my imagination, is the plasticity I have with my writing environment, right? That is my desk where I'm seated right now, right? My laptop, and the time of day, right? There is a certain pattern. And I think the relationship I have with that pattern is that this is the time that I will give to my writing. That everything else has to be set aside. The phone can go on airplane mode, right? And ideally, your laptop should also be on airplane mode, or whatever way that that there are no messages propping up, and you wait. You have to trust this relationship, this plasticity with your workplace. Again, I was listening to a TED talk just to sort of highlight what I'm saying, is that one of this writer said something which has stayed with me, and I believe in this, and I'm going to infect you with this. She said that this waiting for something to happen is like waiting for the genius to come and visit you, right? Now, here's an interesting thing. We say that person is a genius, right? It's wrong. What you need to say is, she has genius, or I have genius, right? The genius visits you. The genius visits everyone. The word genius, genie, have similar roots. So you wait for the genius to arrive, and the genius will arrive. Trust it. And if you're not prepared, if you're not waiting, and if you're not there to receive the genius, it's going to go elsewhere, which is fine, because it may visit another writer or a playwright or a poet, and maybe that person is going to come up with genius, right? So Bansi Dada, how are you? I'm sorry I missed your session, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Everyone's raving about it. Vijay couldn't stop talking about it, and he said that's one of the grandest sessions they've had. And I really do miss Bhopal and your wonderful company, and I do hope that in better times to come, I can visit Rang Vidushak and you once again, and have intellectual discussions once again. So I'm out of time, but the other relationships, plasticity with the play world, that is the world of your story, the plasticity of the stage, right? The plasticity with the audience, with your directors, with your actors, so on and so forth. But let that not, ultimately it just comes down to you sitting down in a space and beginning to write. And now is a very, very good time to do it, where you have the time and you don't have the excuse. Believe me, it's going to change things for you, even if you don't want to be a playwright, but if you want to be an actor or a costume designer, or whatever it is that your profession attracts, that you find attracted to, I think it begins with the writing. So thank you all. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and I look forward to your questions. I don't know how I'm going to receive it, but I think once I sign off, I will be able to get it. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Coconut Theatre. This has been a wonderful experience. Thank you, Keyushi, Jaydev, Vijay, Vinay, all of you. Thank you so much.